evening, everybody. Kevin J. Johnston here. This is the Money and Real Estate Show with, of course, Kevin J. Johnston every single Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. That is correct, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Tonight, we're going to be talking about buying properties in Florida. We're bringing back a guest that we've had on the show a couple of times in the past. Good guy, works hard, helps a lot of Canadians get out of Canada and into the U.S. of A., especially in the real estate market. But I wanted to start off just talking about a couple things here, everybody. Tax. We got a very big problem with the Canada Revenue Agency these days. They are an excessively militant group, and they are threatening Canadians left, right, and center. And in doing so, they are removing your ability to make a living. But they're not even using tactics that are legal anymore. So you all know that if you want to get your taxes dealt with, if you want to get rid of your personal income tax or your corporate income tax, let me know. Go to kevinjjohnston.com, book yourself a 1-hour consultation. A couple of quick things here. Recently, we all have eureka moments in life. And I've been having a few of those. My eureka moment was back on Christmas Day. I'm sitting on a beach in Costa Rica and I realized, wait a minute. Debt is considered a commodity by credit card companies. How do I know? Because credit card companies sell their debt to other corporations who then phone you after having bought that debt for about 3 to 10 cents on the dollar, and they needle you and harass you until you give them money on an older debt that you forgot about and that legally was going to expire in 7 years, but they trick you into reopening the contracts. And I'll explain that in a future show. But the other thing is debt. When I realized that debt could be sold by the creditor, I kept asking, can you not sell debt as the debtor? If it's going to be a commodity that goes one way, it has to go both ways. Well, it turns out, eureka, it can be sold. And I figured it out. So I contacted not one, but 2 lawyers. And we were kind of having ourselves a good laugh because when I talk to the lawyers that I know, it's light-hearted conversation. But I asked them, can I buy people's debts and bury the debts for those people? It turns out, yes, I can. Very, very specific rules I got to follow to get it done. But so long as I follow the rules set forth in the Excise Tax Act in Canada and following tax law in Canada, then I absolutely can, which is what I do. So if you have a corporation and the corporation has a vast amount of CRA debt, which is Canada Revenue Agency debt, that includes income tax, payroll tax, GST, HST, CEBA loans, leases, whatever you have in the way of debt, I can buy all of that from you, take it all away. You get to start your life over. Well, my other eureka moment was just 2 weeks ago. I'm thinking, there has to be a way that Canadians can just not pay income tax. Has to be a way. Well, eureka moment, hit me like a ton of bricks. Called the same lawyers that I know, and I asked them, guys, is it possible for the average Canadian to have invested in corporations that they do not own, but still be able to remove their original investment tax-free? And all of us just started laughing. Like, yeah, how did we not think of this 30, 40 years ago? Yes, we can have Canadians who are having personal income tax trouble, not just corporate, but personal income tax trouble. We can have them removing investments that they made 10, 20, 30 years ago, tax-free. So if you have personal income tax debt, or you've done something like you haven't paid your taxes for the last 2, 3, 5, 7 years, get a hold of me because I can make that number 0. Legally, I can make that number 0. Eureka moment 2 weeks ago. I finalized everything just a couple of days ago on this one. This whole thing is me learning. I read case law in Canada and I read it every single night. Every day I read this stuff. And something new comes across my desk every single night. And when I have these eureka moments, I don't act until I speak to my lawyers, and lawyers plural now, and say, guys, you're not going to believe this. I figured it out. I think, is it legal? That's all I need to know. Is it legal? It doesn't matter if the Canada Revenue Agency doesn't like it. Is it legal? Well, it turns out it's also legal for me to buy corporations in 5 American states: Idaho, Montana, Illinois, New York, and Florida. Wow. So if you're in one of those states and you have corporate debt that you want to ditch, call me. Because my corporation, Canmore Acquisitions, is going to buy your company, and you get to walk away from all your debt on the same day. Could you imagine? Now, the biggest issue that people will have with going corporately bankrupt is that corporate bankruptcy is zero guarantee that you're going to be completely discharged from your debts. And we have to make sure that you are completely discharged from all of your debts. Otherwise, what is the point of going bankrupt in the first place? So I want to just illustrate the point here, everybody, that bankruptcy is a solution, but it's one that needs to be thought through well before you do it. You can't just go ahead and do it. You got to contact me. I got to walk you through it. There's a lot of things to know. There's a lot of things that you're not going to understand when we first talk about it, because I invented these things, and that's fine. I don't mind explaining the same thing a few times to you so that you do understand it. Before we bring my guest in, I need to read something to you. I am now in receipt of a garnishment letter. This is the first letter I've seen this year where the CRA decided to go ahead and garnish somebody. Now, I'm not going to give you the person's name. I'm just going to read the wording to you and discuss for a couple of minutes what this means. This is someone named Diane Moore. Gives herself a badge number of 1251 for Canada Revenue Agency, like any of that would mean something to a guy like me. All right, here's the exact wording of the letter. And this is to the employer of my client. This letter explains how to calculate the amount you must withhold to meet the terms specified in the attached requirement to pay issued against Mr. Smith. And it says, on the requirement to pay, we are asking you to deduct 40% of the net salary or wages. You calculate the net salary or wages as follows: gross salary or wage, where they have federal and provincial tax, Canada Pension Plan contributions, Quebec Pension Plan, employment insurance premiums. It says the amount to deduct from all of that is 40%. This is not a court order. This is just a letter. You make other corporate mandatory deductions after you deduct the amount you must remit to us under the requirement to pay. It's just a letter. It's not a court order. This is not a judge. This is some jerk. If Mr. Smith's income is subject, check this out. I couldn't believe I heard this. All right. If Mr. Smith's income is subject to a family court order, please call me right away at the number shown on the requirement to pay before deducting any amount. Right. So they're trying to say that they're going to get their deductions before a family court gets theirs. You can't do that. That's a court order. Family court orders are a court order. This jerk who works for a collection agency can't say any of this. Now, it says if you do not follow the requirement to pay, we may, not will, we may. This piece of crap says we may have to assess you personally for the amount that you were required to pay. You can't do that. You cannot assess a director of a corporation without a court order when you told them to deduct someone's money without a court order. I'm going to be making a phone call to this person. But also, the employer is now on the hook for this because the employee can sue the employer for that. You cannot deduct someone's money. You can't take 40% off someone's paycheck without a court order. And the Canada Revenue Agency are not a court. A Canada Agency officer, as they call themselves, are not judges. They do not have the right to issue these commands. And you as an employer, when you get one of these letters, you better not comply because you're breaking the law. So everybody, what I want to tell you is that if you get a garnishment letter, we can get rid of it. That's right. I know exactly how to get rid of that garnishment. This particular individual that made that threat is guilty of intimidation and extortion and fraud. These are crimes. And this person's going to now, unfortunately, cross paths with me because I'm in this for my client, not the CRA. and not the client's employer, who is deducting 40% from paychecks, where the CRA takes an additional 30% off the check. Imagine having a paycheck where you only get 30% and you're still going to get taxed on that. Because that 40% coming off is on a tax debt that he actually doesn't owe. And I know this because I've gone through his tax file. This person that works for CRA has officially pissed me off, and I'm going to go to town. But on a happier note, all right, get a hold of me. You got tax trouble in Canada, get a hold of me. We're going to fix your tax problems. In the meantime, I want to introduce you to a gentleman who helps Canadians get into inexpensive housing. And if it's not going to be inexpensive housing, but expensive housing, he can get you financing within the United States of America. So, Tim Bassett, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. Good to see you.
Glad to be here, Kevin. Thank you very much. After listening to what you got going up there, I can see why a lot of people would like to come down to Florida.
Well, I think they should, Tim, because you and I have talked about this before. I lived in Miami, Tampa, Indian Rocks Beach, Tarpon Springs. I know all of Western Florida like the back of my hand, and I love Western Florida. And there are those who say that the East is better. I don't argue the merits of it because Florida is Florida and Florida rocks. It's got 7 international airports, for God's sake. 3 professional football teams, 2 pro hockey teams, 2 pro baseball teams. Not that I care about pro sports, but your entertainment options are not in any way limited. But Tim, who are you and what do you do?
Well, my name is Tim Bassett. I am a mortgage banker and investor in the free state of Florida. Not only do we have lots of airports and entertainment, but we have a governance here that actually cares about the citizenry, unlike so much of the world today. For example, our governor just got Disney in a settlement they had to put $1.7 billion of their dollars into Florida state parks. So not only is he defending us against the woke mob out of the Northeast, but he's actually getting these companies to put money back in the state. So if you like a free sovereign state, Florida is definitely where to go. So what do I do? Well, I've got a lot of Canadian clients. Several of them are some of the big name developers up there in Canada that have come down here and built 50, 100 homes, several apartment buildings, and they're reasonably priced all the way through ultra luxury. If you want to partake into Florida, it's got cooler areas in the winter where you actually get down to freezing in Jacksonville and Nassau County and parts of the Panhandle. If you like it warm all year round, well, that's from Orlando south. It's you have sunshine pretty much every day. The wildlife here is superior. There is more water. I mean, you're never more than an hour and a half away from water anywhere in Florida. And most of the time you're within 100 yards. I've got a place in Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm literally 100 yards from the St. John River. From there, I can navigate to anywhere in the world. My other place is down in Southwest Florida, and I'm right on the Gulf. So, and in between, we have the intercoastal where you go from the East Coast to the West Coast, straight across in whatever size yacht you may want, or a rowboat. It's got more parks, more wildlife, more entertainment. And what I like about Florida, it's a healthy lifestyle. You're outside in the fresh air, you're getting sunshine, you're out being active, people are friendly. Yeah, we have the meme of the Florida man who's riding around with an alligator on his car roof with smoking a cigar. Yeah, that happens, but nobody really cares because you can do what you want. You follow our basic human principles of, live and let live, and everyone pretty much gets along. In terms of moving to Florida from Canada, there are a number of ways you can do that. First of all, contact me and I'll give you a consultation. Kevin will have my number for you. I'll give it to you now. It's 1-904-923-3206. Okay, and you can text me I'm open on East Coast hours from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekdays. So I have a pretty broad calendar there. We can squeeze in a conversation, even if it's by text. If you want to just text me sometime, say I'm interested in coming to Florida, what do I need to know? I will send you information on how to do it. There are homes available in the state of Florida for rent as little as $1,500 a month. They're not that common, and they're not going to be in downtown Miami or Tampa, but they're in the state, and you're not far from those places. If the typical apartment or single family home that's got 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, rents for about $1,700 a month in the northern part and about $25 in the southern part.
Right.
That's excluding downtown Naples or Miami or Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, where there's nothing really available for under $5,000 a month. But if you like, we've got methods where you can buy a home, a condo, a townhouse, and you just need 25% down. You don't have to have any USA credit whatsoever. You don't even have to have any Canadian credit. All you have to have is the down payment, and pick the house that you want, and we close it. We can help you rent that out. If you want to have an investment property when you're up in Canada, that can happen. There are many ways to accomplish it. My calendar is pretty full all the time, helping Canadians get down here and buy a home. And beyond that, there is an express process for people that want an investor visa where they can become a citizen in 3 years. There are certain requirements for what you buy and how much you invest, and not everyone can do that, but a group of people can do it. You get 5 or 10 guys together, put in the minimum capital, open up a corporation, and bingo, you're in. So it's a state that welcomes people into the communities. Most people are live and let live. It's like I said, it's a very healthy outdoor culture. That's not to say that there isn't any crime. There are some areas that you want to stay away from. That's true in anywhere in the world, but it's greatly reduced here because our sheriffs, they take a hard line to criminal behavior. And
I've actually, Tim, I've been seeing that quite a bit. What'll end up happening is when a major arrest takes place in Florida, you'll see the sheriffs come out. They've either got the green shirts or they've got the khaki shirts, and they'll explain the whole situation so that the media doesn't run away with really foolish stories. And I noticed that the media seems to be somewhat under control in Florida, only from the standpoint of the police departments, especially in Miami-Dade, Tampa, and Pinellas. They just come right out and tell people what's going on. I like the way that the Florida police do that. But now what I'd like to do here is talk about the towns and the cities that you have access to get people into, and which ones are best for Canadians. Go ahead.
Well, I am licensed everywhere in the state, and it depends on what you like to do. Like I said, there's water almost everywhere. Like I said, I'm 100 yards from the St. Johns River, which is 3 miles wide. And then I'm 15 minutes from the Atlantic beach in the Atlantic Ocean. There's, if you like cowboy stuff, Florida is really the state where the cowboy originated. There are lots of cattle farms in the south central part, even in the mid and northern central parts. It's, if you like sports, they're everywhere. We've got race tracks for people that like to race. We've got, over 1 million acres of forest land, some of which you can ride your quads and your motorcycles on, and no one gives a hoot. It's you follow the laws, stop at the stop sign, and don't speed through the residential areas, and they'll let you go. You can have a lot of fun. There's fishing and hunting year around. There's water skiing. There's skydiving, hot air ballooning. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. We have high culture theater, and for those people that are interested in it. I lived in New York for a long time and in Washington, D.C., and I always like going to the cultured events, and I love theater. And there are several theaters. Jacksonville has one, Tampa has one, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. So if you like the performing arts, they're there. As far as beautiful women and handsome men, well, when you're walking around without your shirt on, people tend to try to stay in shape. And it's just part of the healthy lifestyle that we all seem to cultivate here.
Okay. So Tim, I just got to get your phone number again. We have somebody in TikTok wants to give you a call.
Yes, sir. It's 904-923-3206. And if you text me during the show, I'll have to get you afterwards, but I will. So,
okay. So again, that's 902.
No,
9. Huh?
904.
4. Oh my God. So sorry. I have my glasses on.
Yeah.
904 923 3206. Just message Tom. Tell him you saw him on the show. Sorry, Tim. Tell Tim you saw him. Oh my God. It's been a long day. I got before, folks. Forgive me. Tell Tim that you saw him on my show, and Tim is going to take care of you. You'll probably get an extra beer out of the whole deal, won't you? So
yes, sir.
It's definitely all good. The reason I asked you to give Tim a quick call is mainly because I'm in Panama right now, folks. And as much as I would love to take your phone calls about Florida, I have so many phone calls about Canadian taxes that I'd rather you just talk to Tim direct and tell him that you saw him on my show. All right. So, Tim, a Canadian wants to get a hold of you, which they do at the phone. Now they want to buy a property in Florida. Walk us through the steps. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the steps are you work with one of the real estate agents that I can assign you, or you can pick one of your own. I have actually several Canadians that have moved here that have become real estate agents. So they can definitely empathize with you, and you can talk the same language because you come from a similar culture. You look through. You can also look on Zillow or Redfin or any one of those properties that you find. Don't contact the agent on the sheet. Contact me first, and then we'll line you up to take a look at the property. Many properties today you can view virtually, and one of the agents that I can sign you with will go in and keep you on the phone and walk through every room, open up every drawer, switch on every light switch to make sure that's what you want. It's always recommended that you come see it first or have someone do it for you. But I've had people buy houses sight unseen or only seen virtually, and it does work. The next step is you got to transfer your money from a Canadian bank to a U.S. bank. Okay. Now, TD is a bank that you can use because they're in Canada and the United States. HSBC is another one. Just transfer it into an account that you can access. TD is one that a lot of my Canadian people use because it'll take Canadian dollars and convert them in your account. You can send a bank statement. That's all I need to see that you have your down payment, and then we'll do the sale at a closing. Now, another thing with one of my big Canadian developers who's building down here, he's flying around the globe all the time. We can do a virtual closing by FedExing you the documents, and you can fill them out at your home, get them notarized, or taken by whatever the notary equivalent in Florida or in Europe or wherever,
Right.
and then you become the owner of the property. If you want to occupy it yourself or you want to lease it, we can help you with leasing. There's a lot of homes, particularly in the southern portion of the state, both on the west side and on the east side, that people come down just for 4 to 6 months a year, and they want to rent it out the rest of the time. Now, you could do an Airbnb thing or one of those things and just handle it on a daily basis. They have that program. I don't get involved with that personally, but I know many people that do. Or if you wanted to lease it for 6 months, we could put an agent on it for you, and they can handle all the paperwork and do all the property management for you. So it's really not that difficult. Renting properties, you can do that virtually. Take a look at it, see if you like it. If you want it, we put a reserve in for it, and then you get down here and you occupy.
All right. Now, for Canadian citizens who are not holding green cards or E2 visas or ITIN numbers or otherwise, how long can a Canadian stay in the United States in their rental property?
That's a question I don't know. But typically 6 months is what I've seen. I have Canadians that have been here without a visa or a green card for more than a year. They're not getting chased out. Even if Trump gets back in, I don't think they're going to chase out the Canadian. Legally, I know that you have at least 90 days, but it might be 6 months. That's a good question. I should look that up.
It's a matter of, I know that it's 6 months. Canadians have an automatic 6 months per year, though. It's not, you don't go 6 months, go home for 2 months, and then come back for 6. It's 6 months per year. But I was wondering if there was some special proviso that you knew of for property owners or property renters.
No special provisos for property owners or renters, just the basic immigration guideline. However, if you have an investment in the state of Florida, there are some speedy ways to become a citizen. And that generally requires more capital. Like I said at the beginning of the show, you can do it on your own or with a group of people. Come up with a corporation. You can open up an LLC online at sunbiz, sunbiz.org, O-R-G. And that'll take you to Florida. And you can open up an LLC, Tim Bassett LLC, or whatever you want to call yourself. They'll issue you a tax ID number there, and you've got a corporation in the state of Florida. Once you file it, you have to maintain that, which means every year you got to file an LLC report. And it's not that hard to do. The basic founding documents, you can find them online. I could send them to you. It's just organizational chart, who's in the corporation, what is your mission, and who are the officers. And that's pretty much it.
So that's S-U-N, sorry, that's S-U-N-B-I-Z?
B-I-Z, yeah, Z, yes.
Yeah, Z, no Americans say Z, Canadians said Z. That's all right.
And the British.
And the Brits, yeah, sunbiz.org. You can register yourself in a Florida LLC. And you know what's really cool, Tim, about that is as a Canadian, you could register a Florida LLC, do business in the United States under it, but be a tax resident of Panama and not pay a penny of tax. Isn't that amazing? So,
even though, Florida has no state income tax, and we have a reasonable sales tax, and every year we get a tax holiday of 45 days where you can buy certain things without any tax. There's no tax on food or any food byproduct. Now, if you're buying restaurant food or prepared foods, that's something different. But if you go to the grocery store, there's no bill on your food. It's also easy to grow your food here. I know people with quarter-acre lots that have gardens that sustain, 90% of their vegetables over the year. I have kale and cabbage and things in my backyard and sweet potatoes. Those things grow year round. And I'm in the northern part up here. In my southern part of the farm, we don't plant sweet potatoes or any greens because the hogs come to get them. And
right.
They can be a nuisance. So we're going to take care of that with some dogs. But yeah, no state income tax. We have the federal, of course, but there are ways around that, and legal ways around that. I don't like to give any more money than I have to Washington, D.C., because we know what they do with it. They waste it. They don't spend it on things that benefit the citizenry of this country. So,
okay. Yeah. Well, that's dynamite. And again, I mean, to me, you're preaching to the choir because I lived in Florida for 6 months, and I visited Florida every single year from probably 1975 up until about 2 years ago. So I love the state. I love everything about it. It's easy to get along, to get around, easy to get along with people, and now seemingly you've made it a lot easier to buy a property. So now, if we could just cover a couple things here, the let's talk about where I know because I had a family member that owned property. Let's go to the Tampa Bay region, where you've got Tampa on the mainland, essentially. Then you've got the what they call the Howard Frankenstein Bridge. The Howard Franklin Bridge connects Tampa to the big shoal on the west side, which is St. Petersburg, St. Pete's Beach, Tarpon Springs, Clearwater Beach. What else do you have? Our Indian Rocks, Indian Shores, Johns Pass, Treasure Island. Did I miss anything?
No, you got the big ones. All kinds of little towns in there. If you're like a history buff and you want to live in a 19th century town, we have them in Florida. Some of them are still, the same buildings they had years and years ago. Tampa has a downtown on the waterfront that is full of houses built 1920s, 1930s that are in very good condition, and they're not that expensive. When you're on the Gulf Coast, it's generally warmer all year round because you have the less deep, the more shallow bay there holding the heat in over the winter. On the East Coast, it's a little cooler because you have the Atlantic, but whatever you like, we got. The West Coast is a little more traditional, if you can use that word in Florida. On the East Coast, a little more swinging. So if you like the Miami lifestyle and the flashy, it's there. That's not to say that Naples doesn't have its Bugatti or two. Actually, we have about 5. We did a car show in Naples in February. We had 5 Bugattis. So, and they were just local. The Tampa Bay area has got great theater, great architecture, peaceful people, decent roads. One of the things about Florida everywhere is, in Miami, it gets kind of clogged up because it's people, particularly on a Friday afternoon when people are heading to the beach. But most of it has very good roads. We invest a lot in infrastructure. Why do we do that? Because we care about the citizen and their lifestyle. And our state is about the only one in the nation that runs a budget surplus. We got $22 billion in our surplus fund. So we invest that wisely. Yeah. I mean, New York is about $1 trillion in the hole. California, $1.5 trillion. We have a surplus. We're like, I don't know if there's another state in the union that has a budget surplus and does not have an income tax. I mean, when you put those things together, that is a metric of good governance, where, we do have our programs for the needy, and we got our veterans population. We take good care of our people. And that's important if you're choosing a place to live, is you want, a community. Living in a community is better than just living a bunch of individuals. So Florida has that. Tampa, St. Pete, I mean, you can't beat it. You got Clearwater Beach. The beaches are everywhere. I mean, it's like you can name, there are probably 500 different beaches in the state of Florida, from Atlantic, Neptune, Punta Gorda, all the way down through Miami. Then you have the Keys. Okay, I don't go to the Keys much because it's not convenient for me, but they're beautiful as well. And if you're a person that likes the Hemingway lifestyle, man, it is there. The Keys are wonderful. If you're a fisherman, I mean, you can just pick your spot. What do you like to fish for? They're everywhere. If you like marlin and tuna and things like that, you want to go to the East Coast. If you want, reds, they're all in the bay. So it depends on what you like. And if you've never even tried it, I suggest that you go do it because you might like it. It's a lot of fun.
So Tim, I got to get into things like if I was to buy a house, let's say on the West Coast there, how quickly is property flipping? Are houses being bought and sold fast, or are they being held right now? Like, I need to know what's going on in the market. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, Florida market is always pretty robust. It, like anywhere, mimics the people that comprise it, and humans have a couple of emotions, most notably fear and greed, and those two kind of run into each other. In the 2020 pandemic period, people were flocking to Florida like crazy, and houses were appreciating at like 25% a year on a statewide basis. But when you go to places like Tampa or Miami, they can go up 20% in a month. I mean, it's just when the demand is high and interest rates are low, prices of real estate skyrocket. Well, during that period of time, a lot of people came down and bought 3 houses because they're going to go up forever. Well, now that things have cooled down, the pandemic has settled, other states allow people out of their house. The market has cooled a little bit. That's not to say that it's dropping, but they're losing that 20% a year appreciation, going more towards a long-term average about 7% a year. And those people that bought the house in 2020, 2021, and priced it up 50% over what they paid, they're starting to lower their prices to what would be reasonable. It's not that the prices come down. They just bought it for 150, tried to sell it for 400, and now they're bringing it back to where it should be, about 300,000. So it's reason is coming back in, and actually now is a good time to buy because there's not a 6-month supply of houses. There's about a 2-month supply of houses based on the rate. That's considered a strong market. The interest rates for Canadians buying a house in the United States, they can get nearly the same interest rate as a U.S. citizen right now, maybe 0.25% higher, which on a $300,000 house is like $5. So it's not going to be a dramatic difference when you put it on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage.
Okay. And how easy is it to get a mortgage right now in Florida?
Well, if you're a Canadian citizen, you don't even need to have United States credit. If you do, and it's good, that'll help you. But if you don't have any United States credit, it's fine. We don't ask for your Canadian credit. We just want to check that you have down payment. Now, the down payment for a Canadian citizen is 25%. So that sounds a little steep. Yeah, it can be for some people. But if on a $200,000 condo, that's $50,000. So that's, I don't know if you have that or not, but 2 or 3 people get together with a portion of it, split up the equity. That can be done. That happens more often than not. So there are ways to do it. Once you become a citizen, you can buy a house with no money down. So,
amazing. Well, it sounds to me like that's the way to go. And when you're stating that you can get somebody a place for 25% down, does that have to be a condo, or are you talking houses as well?
You can buy a single family house. The minimum loan is $100,000 and the maximum is $3 million. But we've done some for 5. So they will make exceptions for people looking for the bigger property. You can buy a 1-family, a 2-family, 3-family, 4-family house. And the beautiful thing about a 4-family is you can buy the 4-family unit and you can keep one for yourself and rent the other ones. So,
yeah, becoming a landlord is actually the way to go in our modern world. I am floored at how much money Airbnb is making for a lot of property owners, especially here in Panama City, Panama, not Panama City, Florida, but in Panama City, Panama. People are making money hand over fist with their Airbnbs. It's crazy how well that works. And are there any parts of Florida where it's illegal for someone to buy a house and run it out as an Airbnb?
Yeah, there are. In Miami Beach for a while, it was considered illegal. The town board, with big donations from the hotels, they passed an ordinance that said you could not rent for less than 6 months and 1 day. So that has gone away. That became an infringement on the rights. So you can rent a house in Airbnb. It's best to pick, Miami's always a hot place, and that's pretty much going to book out almost every single night. St. Augustine is another place where people go, and I had a bunch of Canadian or California investors buy half a block of houses in St. Augustine Beach, and those things have been rented out for a couple $100 a day since they bought them last year. So they're making bank on that stuff. You can buy an investment property. Tampa would be another good place to go. St. Petersburg, put your 25% down, borrow it if you can, and you will cash flow. Form a partnership with somebody.
All right. Well, that's something actually you and I are going to be discussing is getting partnerships going and buying houses under corporations. We're doing something very interesting here in Panama, for example, where a numbered corporation gets registered and held in trust by a select individual, and then you'll sell 1/5 of the property to 5 different people, Airbnb it out. Everybody gets a dividend every month, and at the end of each year, there's a vote between the shareholders on whether or not to keep or sell the property. So the same thing can be done in Florida, and I think there's more money to be made on.
That's a good idea.
On the west coast of Florida, yeah. So you and I are going to talk more at length about getting Canadians into 1/4 and 1/5 ownership of properties for the purposes of making that little bit of extra cash on the side. Because as far as I understand, Tim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that would make them partners in an LLC, and that could be the surefire way to get their hands on an E2 visa or an ITIN or ESN number. Am I right?
That I don't know about surefire, but every little bit helps. And if you've got investment in our state, I thought I lost you for a second there, Kevin. If you got investment in your state, that's a shoe in. The more that you have in the state of Florida, the quicker you can move. So, yeah, that would be a way to get started.
That's absolutely
and
remarkable.
Make some money.
Yeah.
At least, or if you don't, at least pay for the expenses of it. I mean, if the typical Airbnb, you only got to rent like 4 days a month, and it covers everything. So it's not a bad way to go.
No, not at all. And considering the fact that houses are being sold for 200, 250, 300, that's considerably better than the 1.8 million that houses in my hometown of Mississauga are selling for. And these are garbage deck homes built in 1982, 1976, and so on. It's junk.
It's the Canadian real estate is it's unimaginable. I can't believe that it's happened the way it has. But
well, it's all about money laundering. If money laundering was actually made illegal in Canada, guess what would happen? The housing market would tank to about 1/10 what it is now. Because can anybody out there really justify a house in Edmonton, Alberta, being worth anything more than $30,000? Because you couldn't pay me to live in that city. Whereas Calgary, I would pay to live in that city. So
yeah, exactly.
There we are.
Well, yeah, not many money launderers come here, that's for sure.
I know the RICO laws and the money laundering laws in the States are pretty intense. And I'm quite aware of the fact that fraud in America is the same thing as second-degree murder. You can face 20-year jail sentences in the United States for fraud over $1 million, for example. So I wouldn't pull a stunt there.
And the state laws on fraud, particularly towards the impoverished or elderly or veterans, you're going away. So, and that's a good thing because it dissuades people from getting into it. And crime tends to breed more crime. And if we're tough on it, like Kevin was saying, our sheriffs go on television and they lay out the story. We raided this drug house. We found 17 pounds of meth, heroin, and fentanyl pills, 4 shotguns, pistols, etc. They take a picture of it and they put in the front yard a sign. This was a drug house, and we raided it. Lee County Sheriff. And if you want to see those things, just go to anywhere. Florida Sheriff. You can find Grady Judd, who is one of the most famous of the Florida sheriffs. He gets on the television. He says, I encourage our people to own guns. And if someone climbs in the window, I encourage you to shoot them.
I remember that. Whereas
now that doesn't happen in Canada. The guy
No.
who shoots the intruder goes to prison.
That's correct. You're supposed in Canada. You're supposed to guide the guy to your jewelry and cash. Make him some tea and crumpets, maybe some hot coffee, or get him a beer, and then give him a ride home. That's what you're supposed to in Canada. So yeah, I very much prefer the American way of doing things. But the Panamanian way is similar to the Costa Rican way, which is someone breaks in your house, blow them away, call the cops, and they'll come clean up the corpse. You don't want to break into people's houses in other countries that are not Canada. So God bless America for that. Castle law is the greatest thing known to man. And that being said, everyone, you can defend your property here in Panama or over where Tim is in Florida, and go to sleep that night, sleep like a baby, knowing you did a good job.
Right? And your car is an extension of your castle. So when you're out on the road and some thug starts beating on the roof of your car and trying to smash in your window, that is an extension of your home. So same laws apply as a castle doctor. You could defend your life.
Excellent. And yes, Ian Brown is saying that fraud is alive and well in the USA. Check out its government. Well, you're right.
Oh, there you go. That's legal in D.C.
We don't disagree with that. The Democrats and the liberals, the Canadian liberals, are out of their minds. Never will you get an argument there. But what I'm getting at is that excessive fraud is very, very, very highly punishable in the United States, and you will be going away for years, not months. Whereas in Canada, you really can do what you want in the way of white-collar crime, and you get months, not years. Sometimes you get weeks, not months.
And you get to keep the money.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You do. That's absolutely true in Canada. All right. So we're going to get going here in just a few minutes. Tim, how do people reach you again? Please go ahead.
Call me at 1-904-923-3206. I'll repeat that. 904-923-3206. Text me if you like. If you don't want to, you're the type of person that doesn't like to speak right away, send me a text. We'll acquaint each other that way. It's very common today. We didn't do that years ago, but hey, I get many, many messages and loan applicants and customers just simply by text. So whatever you feel more comfortable with. If we get into more documentation, I'll give you my email. I will email you things. There's all kinds of things that you can use online, all kinds of tools where you don't even need to go to the copy shop and copy anything. You can just upload them right to my loan site. So we make it pretty easy.
Yeah, and that's why I have you on the show, because you made it easy for Canadians to get to Florida. I know that I'm not pushing, but I'm telling people Panama is a really good choice because the amount of commerce taking place here in Panama City. But I understand that some Canadians don't want to go to a non-English speaking country. I'm having a blast here. It may not be for some people. The alternative for me is Florida. And living on the west coast of Florida was a wonderful experience for me, and I do highly recommend it to anyone, as much as I would recommend Panama City. So, Tim, I want to say thank you very much for being here again. It's
I
really
appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you very much for having me. Folks, give me a call, 8 to 8 on the weekdays. Appreciate it.
12 hours every day. Tim,
yes, sir.
We'll have you back soon. That's a promise.
Yep, I appreciate it. Take care.
All right. All right, everyone. So I want Tim on the show. Like I said, Florida is a place that I've always had a really good time. I've lived in Florida. My family had a condominium in Florida for years. I've got a lot of friends in Florida, and there's a lot to do there. Tim's right about the beach. You're only an hour and a half away from water, no matter where you are in the state. It's either ocean or lake, and there's lots of lakes. And if anybody wants to reach me, just use my website address, everyone. It's somewhere around here on TikTok in the description. And it's, of course, it's right here on Rumble, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and everywhere else we happen to be broadcasting tonight. All right. I want to now just reflect back, if we could please, on Canadian taxes just for a little bit. I know that so many of you in Canada are being hit with CRA letters. I want to remind everybody what's going on with the Canada Revenue Agency. Trudeau took a $10 billion surplus that Stephen Harper, the previous prime minister, left the country and turned it into a $1.5 trillion debt. And you got to factor in how significant that really is. Canada, albeit the country spans 6 time zones, only has 40 million people. Now, because of unfettered immigration, and because the immigration is taking place from non-English speaking countries, 11 million Canadians right now are not working, or 11 million people inside the country, not necessarily Canadians, are not working. When you have a quarter of your population not working and living off of the public trough, well, what do you think is going to happen? And there's a million more non-English speaking people coming into Canada because Trudeau wants to have their vote, which means the crime rate's going to soar and your taxes are going to also soar to go with it to pay for everything. Remember what Trudeau's given money to? Zelensky. He gave money to so much so that we're talking the better part of $200 billion of our money has been given to the Ukraine. We're giving money to Israel, to Boko Haram in Nigeria. We're giving money to Ethiopia, for God's sakes. Why are we doing this? Why are we giving money to Zimbabwe? Zimbabwe's rich. I don't know if you guys understand what's going on in Zimbabwe and in Kenya, but there is more money there than the whole province of Ontario. So we don't need to be giving money to rich Africans. Rich Africans have money. They're rich for a reason. We have to pay attention as Canadian people. I'm a Canadian citizen. I'm in Panama right now, but I want to say to Canadians, you got to pay attention to what's going on planet-wide, because you just never know where the opportunity is going to be for you to improve, but you also never know what the next big thing to hold you back is going to be. And that's, of course, Bill C-63 and Bill 287 in Canada. You'll eventually be able to, you probably will this year, go to prison for life if you insult somebody who is a far left individual. Not good for investment, which means almost every single Fortune 500 company has left. All the Fortune 1000 companies that are outside of the 500, they've all left. GM has left. Most of the car manufacturing plants have left, and all the boat motor engine companies have left. The only thing really that's going on in Canada right now are some retail establishments, but they're not doing very well. When you compare Canada to Panama, as an example, Panama is booming, thriving, and growing in leaps and bounds. It's going to be a first world country within a decade. And I can prove all that because I live here, and I will be going all over the city with my cameras coming very soon to show you that all the retail stores are open for business, making money, full to the brim with customers. Their products are flying out the door fast, and all the malls are busy. There are no boarded up shops anywhere in Panama City. Money everywhere. Florida is the same thing. People are spending money in these places. There's money to be made, and there's money to be spent. And since my lifespan is well past the halfway point, I intend to make money and spend money, have myself some fun. Why not do it in places like Florida? Like we said, we've got football, soccer, hockey. You got the pros in baseball. Then you've got fishing, where you can fish anywhere you want. Same with Panama here. You can fish in the lakes. You can fish in the ocean. And if you feel like getting onto an airboat and shooting an alligator in the head, so you've got enough steak to last you for a month, feel free to do that too in Florida. Here in Panama, go fishing anywhere you want. No fishing license required. So there are better places than Canada to be. Oh, yeah. And Randy Live says the malls in Panama are truly first class. Oh, yeah. You are absolutely correct. Big Zammer, if you want to get a hold of me, my website address right up top here, kevinjjohnston.me. And can we get everyone right here? There's only 6.8 thousand likes. Let's get to 10,000 likes right now. Rapid fire your fingers there, please, and let's get rocking. So for all of you who are getting letters from the Canada Revenue Agency, you got to contact me. These letters are written by psychologists designed to frighten you the most, and it's working for a lot of people because the letters that you're getting with the demands that they're giving you are not even lawful demands. I've proven this to you time and time again. And tomorrow on freedomreport.ca, I'm putting up another video of me telling an officer of the Canada Revenue Agency that she is going to be arrested if she calls my client again. And I'm very serious about that. We are going to be pressing charges if she calls my client one more time. You get a chance to hear the 17 minutes where this particular agent is so afraid of what I'm saying that she would not even give me the fax number where I could send a legal notification to her. Instead, she wanted to tell me that, oh, I'm not responsible for anything. It's the CRA. Blame them, not me. It's wonderful stuff. You can go on the attack against these people anytime that you want. All right, everyone, that's going to be it for now. This is the Real Estate and Money Show with Kevin J. Johnston. It's every single Wednesday for an hour on freedomreport.ca. That's 9 p.m. Eastern time. I really do appreciate each and every one of you being here. And by the way, one last thing before we go for the night, I'd like you to know what to do should the CRA call you. Here's a brief video for you. What should you do if the Canada Revenue Agency calls you?
Shut up! Quiet! I said quiet! What's the matter? You thief or something?
There we go, everyone. So when the CRA calls you, you don't say a word to them. You call me, kevinjjohnston.com, right there. We are going to form a tax strategy for you and get those dirtbags, those criminals off your back. We will see you tomorrow. The Kevin J. Johnston Show, tomorrow being Thursday. That'll be June the 6th. Rob Anders, former friend of Justin Trudeau and a former member of Parliament. We're doing part 3 of the Canadian banks shutting down in 2025. That's freedomreport.ca, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Do not miss that show. Good night. See you tomorrow.